In this video, we're looking at section 5.4, and that is looking at switching between US and metric equivalents. So for the first unit conversion, we're going to look at switching between Fahrenheit and Celsius degrees. So the US customary measure of temperature is Fahrenheit, and the metric is degrees. The formula that you have for switching between the two, according to the chart that you're going to use, is Celsius to Fahrenheit, this one here, except for you'll see that they write 5/9 in front of that F minus 32. It's the same thing. And then if you solve that equation for F instead of for C, you will get the Fahrenheit to Celsius. But if you just use this formula that they give you on the sheet and you are given Celsius and you need to come up with Fahrenheit, so for example, let's say you're given a Celsius degree of 30, and you plug that in, and you have 5/9 times F minus 32. To solve it, first, get rid of the fraction by dividing it off. So again, you have to do it to the other side as well. Don't distribute that fraction, it just makes more work for you. So take 30 and divide it by 5/9. When you do that, you get 54. And since there's nothing now outside of those parentheses, they are not needed. And so as you can see now, all you need to do to finish it is add 32 to both sides. So 86 degrees is equivalent to 30 degrees Celsius. So 30 degrees Celsius sounds cold to us, but it's actually the same as 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which, as we know, is nice and warm. So when we're doing the problems from US to metric conversions, again, you're going to be given the paper. So let's take a look at that for a second. Okay, here's the paper that says US to metric. Notice in each category that we have length, mass, area, volume, they give us two options, either US to metric or metric to US. And either one of those are fine. If you use the first column, it's going to give you the US in units of 1 and the comparable metric units. In metric to US, it's giving the metric units in units of 1 and the comparable US. So my rule of thumb is if they give me US, I'm going to use the US to metric. If they give me metric, I'm going to use the metric to US. And the reason I do that is because then I get a multiplication problem instead of the division problem. Either one you use is acceptable. And we'll take a look at the first problem using both of those columns. So we'll solve it 2 separate times. So for our first one, we have 40 yards squared, and we need to turn it into meters squared. And so that bottom left corner of our paper is where we're going to look. And so if we do our 40 yards, we know we need to get rid of yards squared and keep meters squared. Notice on our chart, it is square yards to square meters, so we don't have to worry about using a unit fraction twice. We're getting rid of the labels. And the equivalent is 1 yard. If we go to the US to metric, it's the same as 0.836. So in the calculator, if you do 40.0836, you're going to get 33 0.44 meters squared. Now, let's do the same problem, but this time using the metric to US instead of US to metric. So still yards needs to be on the bottom because it's the unit we're getting rid of. Meters squared needs to be on the top. And this time the conversion is 1 meter squared to 1.196 yards squared. So divide 40 by 1.196 in the calculator. And this time it doesn't just stop at 33.44. We get 33.4448, which if we round it 2 decimal places still gives us that 33.44. So notice there's a slight variation, but still the numbers are pretty close together. For 100 centimeters squared, let's use the metric to US. And so we have our 100 centimeters squared. Oh, that's bad, sorry. We're going to get rid of centimeters squared and keep inches squared. And our conversion, if we look from metric to US, is 0.155 square inches per 1 square centimeter. And so when we multiply, we get 15.5 inches squared. Let's take a look at this next one. We have acres to ha. Well, ha actually represents hectare, and in the metric system, a hectare is 100,000 square meters. But when we go to our unit conversion, it's still in the area section of our chart, so still that lower left. We get that, since we're given acres, go US to metric. 1 acre is 0.405 hectares, or has. And when we do that, we get 2.43 hectares in our calculator. And again, you could have, instead of used this relationship, you could have used that 1 hectare is the same as approximately 2.47 acres. So then you would divide 6 by 2.47. So let's use that conversion, since now they're giving us a metric unit. So again, that one was 1 hectare is the same as 2.47 acres. And if we do that, we get 12.35 acres. So here's a couple for you to try, just like with the first one and the last one. I want you to do A twice, one using inches to centimeters and the other one using centimeters to inches, and see what you get. So pause the video and just do that one twice and see what you get. So notice that the numbers are a little bit farther apart this time. So our decimal place, we have 0.85 or 0.94. And again, both acceptable answers. If you use one versus the other, I'm going to know both answers and you're going to get it right if you do it correctly, no matter which unit conversion you do. Sometimes either one gives you the same number when it's rounded. Sometimes they don't quite match, so that's okay. So when you see my answer key for problems like this and there's 2 answers, it's just because I solved it using both ways and they came up with different answers. So I have the answer for both ways. So no matter which one you did, you should be able to check your answer. So go ahead and pause the video, finish the other three, and then check your work. Okay. So if you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to send me an email. Otherwise, let's go ahead and look at some true-false together. First one, water freezes at 32 degrees Celsius. Well, we think of water freezing at 32 degrees, but again, the US is Fahrenheit, not Celsius, so that's false. In the metric system, water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Statement 2, when converting between US customary and metric units, often the results will be approximations. Well, you saw we were getting different answers, that's true. And the reason is because those unit conversions are rounded, and so it changes the value depending on where it was rounded from one way to solve it to the other. For number 3, a 5K or a 5-kilometer run is longer than a 5-mile run. Let's see which one is bigger. And so again, you can go to your chart to help you look at that. And so let's peek it. So here's our miles to kilometers up here on the left, top left. So 1 mile is the same as 1.61 kilometer, or 1 kilometer is about 0.62 miles. So that means a kilometer is shorter than a mile. So they're not the same. So this is false. And if you've ever run a 5K, you probably know that a 5K is approximately 3.2 miles. And we can use our unit conversion to answer number 4 as well. 1 square meter covers more area than 1 square yard. So let's take a look at that. Here is our square yards and square meters. Notice it's 1 yard equals 0.836 square meters, or 1 meter equals 1.916 square yards. So that means that our square yards are bigger. Sorry, there we go. So this one is true. And so let's fix our false up here. A 5K run is shorter. So here's some more practice problems for you to do. Pause the video. Again, for your answers, I'll have both ways. You don't have to solve them 2 times, you just have to solve them once, but I'll have both ways, so your answer should be up here when you check your work. All right, let's take a look at some story problems now. Baking. While visiting her aunt in Germany, Helga wants to surprise her aunt with a cake. She brought her mom's cake recipe with her from Georgia. The recipe says to bake the cake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, but the temperature gauge on her aunt's oven is in Celsius. So what degrees does she need to set the oven to? And we need to round to the nearest degree. So again, let's take a look at that formula that we have on our sheet. C equals 9/5 times parentheses Fahrenheit. So we'll plug in 354 Fahrenheit minus 32. If you're typing this all in the calculator at once, make sure you use parentheses. Otherwise, do the 350 minus 32 and hit equals. So it does the subtraction first before you do multiplying by 9/5. It tells us to round 1 decimal place. And so we will get 176.6 repeating, so 176 2/3. So that rounds to 177 degrees for our Celsius temperature. The Ironman Triathlon Championship in Hawaii consists of a swim of 3.86 kilometers, a bike ride of 180.25 kilometers, and finishes with a run equal to the length of a standard marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So we need to add them together to get the total length and round to the nearest tenth of a kilometer. So the issue is this one here is in miles. We're going to have to do a unit conversion to get that into kilometers. So 26.2 miles. We're getting rid of miles and keeping kilometers. And so if we do the unit conversion, it's 1 mile is about 1.61 kilometers. And so that gives us 42.18 kilometers approximately. And then we can add our 3.86 to the answer and 180.25. So when we do that, we see that the total length of the triathlon rounded to the nearest tenth is about 226.3 kilometers. Because when we add them, we actually get 226.29. Okay, so in your own words, most conversions between US and customary system of metric, sorry, that didn't come out right, between the US customary system of measure and the metric system are not exact. So explain why this is true and give any exceptions. You probably don't know the exception, but the exception is that their inch to centimeter is exact. Take a second to write why all the other ones aren't exact, and then you can compare it with my answer. So as I mentioned before, most conversion units are rounded, and therefore they're approximations. The exception is that 1 inch is exactly 2.54 centimeters. Okay, hopefully this lesson doesn't give you too many problems with homework, since we've been doing unit conversions for a few lessons now. But of course, if you have any difficulties, you can email me them and I will walk you through them. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.